Okay, friends, we're here in front of the one of my apple trees, my messy apple trees, and I've got lots of grass, and we got this gopher mound here. And why is this an emergency to deal with? Well, gophers eat roots, and if this gopher stays in here and keeps eating my tree roots, it's going to kill either all of the tree or maybe parts of the tree. So normally I trap these gophers, but today I'm going to kind of do several jobs in one. Okay, I need to get into all these rings anyway and clean them up for the final cleaning for the year. They'll look good through the winter if I do that. I need to deep water these trees because going into winter, we want to make sure these trees are fully hydrated so they have the best chance of success, continued success. And I need to get rid of this gopher. And again, normally I trap them with these little metal traps, but I can't be that patient. I'm going to flood this gopher out, and while I'm watering the tree, and let's see if we can flush it. But I don't know if we're going to see a gopher today, but doesn't matter. We're going to get in here and we're going to take care of this gopher, and at least make this not a place to live by flooding this tree. And again, it'll give it a great drink, and hopefully we'll get rid of this gopher. And yeah, I don't want to lose a tree because these trees are several years old already, and if I had to replant a new one, then this orchard will be behind. There'll be a tree that's a lot smaller than the other one. So anyway, don't want that. So I'm going to open up this ring, and I'm not going to do a lot of that filming because I've shown you that before, cleaning these rings out. But it's just a lot of manual labor. But I've got a couple zip ties. I'm just going to cut them, open up the wire, and then I will get busy. And then we'll come back, and once I have it ready and cleaned up, and this hole, kind of dug out, so I know where the gopher exactly is, we will get the hose over here, and then we'll see what we can do to flush this gopher out of here. So let's get to work. So I also decided to do a little pruning while I was in here. And the trees needed it, but there it is, all cleaned up. I got the grasses ripped out, but I'm worried about disturbing this tree anymore, so I'm not going to do much digging. So I decided I'm just going to take a hose, and I'm just putting the hose in the hole, and I assume that this is going to be kind of like a toilet. We're going to sit here and fill this hole up, and the gophers, when they close their tunnels up, they pack quite a bit of dirt. But I think this water and the water pressure will eventually show us the tunnels, and I'm hoping it shows us both sides of the tunnel. Because when you trap gophers, you need to find both sides because you really don't know where the gopher is. So normally you set traps, one faced one way in the tunnel. Oh, there we go, it flushed. So let's take a look here, what we got. And there is the two holes as I'm uncovering the one right here. So there's the upper one and the lower one, and that's just a tunnel and they never do straight tunnels. They always have a turn or a bend in them where they do their pile their dirt. So yeah, if you're trying to find a hole, sometimes it's really hard. But again, I didn't want to dig around and just defeat the purpose of what I'm doing here, is trying to protect this tree. So let's try to see if where this gopher might be. And I think he's probably not in the upper tunnel. As you can already see, the water is pushing back. So the upper tunnel, part of the tunnel, is a short piece. So he must have just barely got to that point, and he must have went back down his main tunnel. So he's not. If he'd have been up in there, I think he'd have come popping out of there. But as you see, I just left it running anyway, just to make sure. And all that water's, just pushing back, and it's going down the main tunnel. But you see how big those holes are? I mean, these gophers do a lot of damage. And, you've heard of air pruning beds and things like that. If these tree roots are exposed to air for any period of time, they'll die. And if, the ones that he didn't eat that are exposed to air like this will not survive. So once I get this all done, I'm going to have to fill these holes in too, just to help protect the remaining roots. But this is a waiting game. And again, I had the camera set up because I wasn't sure if we were going to have a gopher come popping out of here or not. But I wait and I wait and I wait. And I had walked the yard and I had not found any other mounds. So I was thinking, where did this gopher come from? It probably came from the city property, and this tunnel is probably long. And there's probably other tunnels that are, dissecting through. But it is weird that there's not more dirt mounds, because usually you see a series of them. But I must have... this gopher must have just dug in here, and I don't know where he put all of his dirt, but yeah, I wasn't going to flood him out. It didn't appear. So I decided I was going to see if maybe taking a little bit of the water pressure off would get the gopher to come back up this hole, maybe try to escape. So I decided to water the rest of the tree. And, again, deep watering was something that I wanted to do. And so, yeah, I just sat here and waited. And there's the holes. And you see, they're big. So that gopher has done a lot of damage already, but had no signs of the gopher popping out. And I couldn't flood him out because I could let water running all day long, and I probably wouldn't have ever backed up. But so I decided I better get my traps out. I don't know, maybe I've drowned this gopher. I don't know. I've never tried to drown a gopher out before, but I've done lots of trapping. So that's a standard gopher trap. And again, you usually put one, facing one way and then another one facing the other side of the tunnel. And because I had pushed the water up through the top tunnel and it had come back out, I didn't think he was up there. So I just set one on the main tunnel going down where most of the water, all the water went. And yeah, this is as simple as you put that trap in there and cover it up, and that gopher won't like the fact that there's some airflow in that tunnel, and he'll come up and investigate. A lot of times you try to catch them. I replace that, my deal being board or pad with a board. And a lot of the times they'll come up and they'll just bury your trap because there's a lot of extra dirt in the hole. And because I fleshed the hole, I'm hoping there's not a lot of extra dirt for that gopher to defeat my trap. We had a lot of storms coming through when I was doing this project, so I want to kind of show you the skies while I'm waiting. And I took the clippings and all the grass that I pulled out of the ring and fed them to the livestock. They love a little bit of a treat. So even some apple tree stems, they enjoyed those too. So yeah, I'm running out of corn stalks, so whatever I've got a little bit of weeding gives the animals a little bit more of a snack. But came out the next day, and look, the board didn't look like it moved, but I think it was just the fence. And as I pulled the board aside, nothing. And the trigger is still set, so I'm just going to leave that trap there and put the board back. And yeah, I'm going to make sure there's nothing obstructing the other tunnel. But yeah, it's still set, and there's no dirt pushed up, so didn't know if he was still alive or not. But the next day, so it's 48 hours later, I got him. So there's my thing with me. But that's a big gopher. That's a good-sized one. So yeah, that right there will kill your tree and do a lot of damage in your yard. So it's sad that you got to kill animals sometimes, but you got to do what you got to do. I'm not going to let one gopher destroy my orchard. So yeah, so I've got the gopher, and they only come in ones generally. There's you don't generally find two gophers in the same hole ever because they're kind of territorial, unless it's a mother, child kind of a situation. So that gopher's done, and I will fill those holes up. And flooding for me is not really that great of an option, but it did give me some new ideas on how I can clean those holes up so the traps are more effective. And I'll do another video on that here with a fresh gopher mound, because every time you get a little bit more experience, I think I may have perfected my craft a little bit. So anyway, if you have problems with gophers, this is what you do or try to do. Thanks for watching.